This video is for entertainment purposes only and should fall under fair use. Viewer discretion is advised as potential spoilers are present here. All rights reserved to Nintendo and Arte Piazza. Above all, please enjoy the video. Before I start talking about Super Mario RPG, there's something I want to address. I never played the original on the Super Nintendo. Now, before we get your pitchforks out, yes, I know how passionate fans are of this title, but in my defence, it wasn't my fault I missed out on this game because it was never released in Europe. There isn't a definitive answer as to why, but the consensus is that RPGs weren't very big back in the day, especially in Europe, and Nintendo didn't think the cost of optimising to the PAL format and translating to different languages would pay off, so Super Mario RPG remained exclusive for America and Japan. Although growing up with Nintendo systems, I didn't know of this game's existence until the internet came along. My exposure to Super Mario RPG was through those mid-2000s Flash animations. The biggest one I can remember is Bowser's Kingdom, a parody series that used SNES era sprites, which featured a whole episode paying tribute to Super Mario RPG. I knew deep down I wanted to play this game at some point, and I completely missed out on the opportunity when the game was finally released in Europe in 2008 on the Wii's Virtual Console and later on the Wii U. Can't buy and download them now because Nintendo shut down those services on both consoles. The only way for Europeans to officially play Super Mario RPG is through the SNES Classic Mini, but the prices for these are astronomical. So my hopes of playing Super Mario RPG seemed hopeless, and I honestly didn't want to go down the emulation route. But June 2023, I was in luck, as Nintendo announced a remake was coming to Nintendo Switch in November. With Christmas around the corner, I took advantage of that and asked for a copy of Super Mario RPG, and lo and behold, my wish was granted. So after years of missing out, I finally get to experience this game properly. And what did I think of the game, having beaten it recently? I think I'm an idiot for passing up on this game because it is awesome! Yep, of all the gaming bandwagons out there, Super Mario RPG is one I can get behind. While it's not a game changer, I finally understand firsthand what people love about this game. But do I love the game the same way, despite lacking nostalgia for the original? Well, let's go over this game TC Connor style. Let's start with the visuals. I can tell the developers went out of their way to recreate the look and feel of the original, while also keeping true to the up-to-date aesthetics of modern Mario, and it translates wonderfully to modern day consoles. While the original looks good, the contrast to the backgrounds and characters is a bit too high for my liking, which creates too much of a dark edge. With the jump to 3D, the game shines beautifully with softer shadows and vibrant colours. Every set piece is a marvel to look at. I will admit I did think that some characters like Mario, Peach and various Toads did look a little squashed compared to everything else, but the more I looked at them, the more I felt they looked right for the environment they inhabit. Something I want to point out, but I feel the font in this game is the same as the one used in Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars. I could be wrong, but there's something uncanny about it. It's not an issue by any means, it's just an interesting observation. One complaint I do have about Super Mario RPG is that it's kinda lacking in the sound department. I don't mean the music, I'll get onto that in a bit. But in terms of sound effects, I feel there are a lot of moments in the game where there should have been sound, but there wasn't. A good example of what I'm talking about is with the boss introductions before a boss fight. I'm aware these intros weren't in the original, and it's a good way to hype up the bosses, but they're done in total silence, which is very strange. Not even a or a don't need much, but something to justify including these intros in the first place. As is, it's just weird that these expressive bosses don't make any sound, even though you can tell what sound is supposed to come out of them. I guess in the long run it's a bit of a nitpick, and quite honestly it's probably the thing that bothered me the most throughout the entire game. But when the most lackluster thing is with the sound, you know a game is doing something right, and I can't express that enough than with the music. Oh my god, there are no words that describe how perfect all the musical themes are. I have heard of some of the music from the original, which is good, but the remakes refine them like diamonds. Two music tracks that stand out as best for me. The first is Nimbus Land. There are so many cloud levels in the Super Mario franchise, and none nails it perfectly as the Super Mario RPG remake version of Nimbus Land, with its calming crescendo of whimsical epicness. The other is the super jazzed up theme of Booster Tower. The entrance to this place has a calming lobby-like tune, but the heart of Booster Tower? This is such a toe tapper, I cannot for the life of me get it out of my head. I'm telling you, if you need something to motivate you or you need a dose of joy, this music track has got you covered. One final thing I want to say about the music is that I can tell just by listening who composed it. It's none other than Yoko Shimomura. She's most noticeable for composing the music for the Kingdom Hearts series, but she's worked on other Nintendo games like Xenoblade Chronicles, the Mario and Luigi series, and yes, the original Super Mario RPG. The fact Shimomura came back to recreate the music with her distinct musical style and surpass the originals with her fantastic rearrangements is something one can't help but smile from ear to ear at. This music is pure art. Alright, so what's the story with Mario this time? Well, quite a lot has happened actually, but the main plot is that an evil army called the Smithy Gang descends on Mario's world, shattering the Star Road in the process, and their goal is to destroy the concept of wishes and take over the world with weapons. It's up to Mario and a colourful cast of characters to find the star pieces to restore the Star Road, as well as defeat Smithy and his army of sentient weaponry. It does sound like a typical Paper Mario or Mario Luigi plot, but keep in mind this is a remake of technically the first ever Mario RPG, and if anything those games took a page from this. Despite that, there are little details that keep the story fresh and interesting. For example, Bowser is not the main antagonist, but rather teams up with Mario in about a third of the game, though under the delusion that Mario has joined Bowser's minions, which is very Bowser. Normally, to progress the story with collectibles, you typically explore an area, come across a boss, defeat it, then collect the important item, rinse and repeat. And while it is true for most star pieces in this game, it's done in a way that keeps the player engaged. Like the very first star piece you find, you're not even seeking out the star pieces at this point, it just happens to be the prize for kicking out Claymore and Groot from the Mushroom Kingdom. I found it very refreshing that the fourth star piece was lying peacefully on top of Star Hill, and all it did was follow the area's path, no boss fight or any complex puzzle to get it. Normally with these linear collection type progression stories, I would have been bored with collecting some star pieces had it not been for the fair amount of save points and the length of each area just being about right. On top of that, the dialogue is downright hilarious. There are quite a few moments that made me laugh pretty hard, like the idea of Toads owning bazookas and using the excuse that they left it at home as a reason why they didn't stop a thief on the run gets me every time. I love it when you meet Mallow for the first time, he introduces himself as a frog. I'd be shaking my head saying he looks nothing like a frog, only for the game to immediately spell out exactly what I was thinking. It's even funnier when it gets to the part where the frog stage reveals to Mallow the obvious. The image of all the other tadpoles and a Lakitu rushing in acting like it's a big bombshell just cracks me the hell up. Sometimes just how a character reacts is enough to get a laugh. During a minigame where you had to avoid being pecked by Dodo, just watching his reaction when he starts to suspect something is up with a disguised Mario, can't help but chuckle. NANI? I might be the only one who finds this funny, but whenever a character other than Mario levels up, I can't help but bust a gut every time I see Mario do this little shuffle dance. I don't know what it is, maybe because of how bouncy he is, but I can't help but laugh every time I see this. No other character dances in such a funny way. Alright, Bowser's pretty funny too. By far the funniest character in this game is Booster. The naivety of this character is something else, from completely disregarding Mario as the one that got down his Mario doll to everything that happens in Marrymore. This guy intends to marry Peach and is nothing but funny dialogue. At one point he stands on the wrong side of the aisle, one of the snifters calls him out and he acts like he knew that. Another is when he wonders why Peach is crying, or leaking as he puts it, and he tastes her quote unquote salty tears. Oh my god. And the laughs just keep coming. He even interrupts a boss fight with a wedding cake that happens to be alive, then proceeds to eat it whole and just walks away, ending the fight. I don't think I've ever seen that in an RPG, let alone fighting a living wedding cake for that matter, and nothing else like that happens throughout the game. It's such a bizarre setup, and I love it because of that. Anyway, regarding the story, There is a part of it that does feel a little underwhelming, and it concerns Geno. Now, whenever someone brings up Super Mario RPG or references it, Geno is at the heart and centre of it. The popularity of this character is on another planet. Whenever Super Smash Bros is going through its DLC roadmap, a lot of people begged for Geno to be playable, and got frustrated when he only ended up as a Mii costume. Since I never played Super Mario RPG up until now, I never understood the context surrounding Geno's popularity. Now, having beaten the game with a bit more understanding of who he is, I hate to be that guy, but I still don't get what's so popular about Geno. Now, don't get me wrong, I like him fine. In fact, I used him a lot throughout the game, and he was way more useful than Mallow. But I wouldn't exactly say he stood out more than Bowser or Peach. He played his role fine, and that's about it. Story-wise, his goal was pretty straightforward. He was sent down to recover the star pieces and decided to inhabit the body of a unique toy. After he meets Mario and explains his mission, that's pretty much all we get from him, and it's just him tagging along with Mario and chums. Again though, his motivation is solid and he happily joins Mario early on in the game. But I have to admit, this is not what I was expecting for a character that everyone won't shut up about. Maybe my vivid imagination is to blame, as I was expecting a brooding character who wanted to do things his way and reluctantly joined Mario after seeing what he was capable of. Or maybe the Toad Kid Gaz, who owned Geno, told Mario that he wished he could help, and despite the Star Road being destroyed, his wish came true. The Star Spirit goes into Geno and rushes to Mario's aid, fighting Bowyer, and then reveals he was sent down to fix the Star Road. That could have been way cooler. But what we got instead was not bad by any means, but very underwhelming when compared to how others perceive Geno. And while this doesn't harm the game as such, it is disappointing that I finally get to see firsthand what all the fuss is about this character, only to come away with, he's alright. Geno is a good party member, not a bad story character, but I think his overwhelming popularity is a bit overhyped. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the all-important gameplay. Having played Paper Mario and the Mario Luigi series, I was all too familiar with the turn-based button timing combat, so while Super Mario RPG didn't offer anything new, it was still fun and engaging to play. A lot of the combat revolves around performing action commands to make attacks stronger or reduce the amount of damage received. Timing attacks correctly I got the hang of pretty easily, and it felt so satisfying to pull off. Some attacks created a shockwave which damaged all enemies and sped up the battle. Defending on the other hand was a bit more of a chore and hard to time correctly due to enemies attacking differently and at different speeds. For some enemies I got the timing down perfectly, others though, even with the handy command prompt which tells you when to press the button, I could not for the life of me get the timing right. In some cases it led to one or two of my party members falling and it became a hassle having to revive them constantly. One enemy that irritated me a lot were Shy Guys. I spent a lot of time in one battle because a Shy Guy kept using Lullaby which put my party members to sleep. I couldn't do anything until it used anything but Lullaby. It wasn't even a hard enemy to beat, but I was constantly being put to sleep while I was asleep, which just dragged on. Other than that, fighting other enemies was quite enjoyable. Some I didn't even get to see how they attacked because I was too damn powerful. And that brings me to the difficulty. I played on normal mode, and maybe because I know in RPGs you have to fight every enemy you see in order to level up, but by doing that I breezed through the game. Some battles were harder than others, but I rarely got a game over. The one time I did get a game over was down to something I was neither prepared for nor expecting. During the boss fight against Valentina, the sidekick Dodo takes the party member in the middle and creates a separate battle. Due to Dodo moving more than once in one turn and poor timing on my part, I ended up getting whipped before I had the chance to heal. On the one hand, I appreciate a boss fight changing things up a bit, but what a cruel way for a player to get a game over when you're stuck with Mallow who doesn't have that great defense and no chance to heal up, and you're not even in the main fight. On the next attempt I forgot to switch out Mallow and was stuck with him again, but he managed to pull through and I returned to the main boss fight. It's probably worth mentioning, but if you do get a game over, you go back to the last save point, or in the remake's case, the last autosave. I'd bring this up because had it been the SNES version, which I don't think had autosaving back then, I would have been kicked back to the last save point, which meant doing most of Nimbus Castle again. Now losing that much progress would have been enough for me to stop playing the game for a while. So, thank God for the autosaves, which saved me at the area before the Valentina fight. Early on in the game, you mostly rely on items to keep your HP full, or whenever a character falls, use a pick-me-up to fully revive them. Those items somewhat become meaningless as soon as you add Peach to your party. She should be called Nurse Peach in this game because that's exactly her role. Her therapy special not only recovers the HP of a character, but cures them of any status effect. Her group hug special is the same as before, but applies to everyone in the party including herself, and if anyone falls, she can use comeback to revive a party member. Of course that does mean she becomes an easy target, and if she falls, you'll need to use a pick-me-up on her so she can get back to healing. What's great about Peach is that her specials don't consume an awful lot of FP, so the 8 items you need to keep a lot of are FP syrups to keep FP replenished so that you can continue healing, as well as dish out other hard-hitting specials like Mario's Super Jump and Geno's Geno Flash. Leveling up is vital in order to progress the game, but it's not the only thing you need to keep up with enemies, and that's where the equipment comes in. You can equip weapons, armour and accessories to turn the tide of battle. Weapons you find gradually, which every character has their own to equip, which increases their attack power and is even reflected in battle. For example, Mario can go from using his fists to a hammer or kicking a shell at enemies. Armour is more for defences but can increase other stats as well. However, for some reason, the work pants found in Moleville was universally the best armour to use throughout the majority of the game. Not only could this armour be equipped by any character, but new armour found later in the game just didn't provide much better stat increases. Accessories can provide different types of buffs. They can range from stat increases to protection against status effects. Boy, that wake up pin would have been so helpful against those Shy Guys earlier. A lot of stuff you get in the game requires purchasing with coins, and luckily I never ended up running out because there's a cap on how many items you can carry at one time, which helped save coins for more important stuff. There are also these frog coins which aren't as common as regular coins. The only real way to farm these is by playing certain mini games or defeating strong enemies that appear occasionally. I didn't use these very much, although I did buy one item from a frog in Seaside Town, which was the EXP booster. This was a godsend as some characters were a little under-leveled and it helped them catch up pretty fast to the point I no longer needed it. The controls were fine and simple to use, but I'm not sure platforming was this game's strong suit, ironic for a platforming character like Mario. For the most part, most platforming segments were fine, but for others, I think this part of Land's End Cliff will demonstrate just how much I struggled with the jumping mechanics. Oh, what the? Oh! Okay, doing alright. Oh, he just stopped in midair! Oh! Oh my... Ugh. Oh, stop falling off the shell! Okay, steady does it. Almost there. Ah, oh, my god. God, that took longer than it should have. The progression of this game is pretty straightforward and linear, but there's room for exploration which does reward you for straying off the path. Navigating the different areas was easy, although there were occasions where I got stuck and I wasn't sure what to do next. There's one time I was stuck in Rosetown and I knew I had to go to the forest maze, but the path wasn't available and I wasn't really sure how to open it. It occurred to me though I didn't go into every building, and as soon as I entered the inn, the cutscene with Gaz played and I was able to continue the game, so deductive reasoning can help you if you get stuck. That being said, there was one other part I had to consult the internet because I just couldn't find a place I needed to go after going back and forth at Land's End. I knew it was somewhere in the desert, as the old lady at Monstro Town mentioned it, which is where she sent the paratroopers. But I was running around Land's End for ages. I even went back to Monstro Town to speak to the old lady again for hints, and all she said was, "Good luck finding the star." The scrapbook didn't help either, which updates as you progress the story. All I had for a hint was this little flagpole symbol next to Land's End, so I was at a loss. Looking back, I'm kicking myself I didn't notice this path at the top of this section in the desert, which led to the cliff I needed to go. I could have saved myself 100 coins that I wasted on the shortcut located in Bellome Temple. Suffice it to say, I had a blast with Super Mario RPG. Although I can't exactly judge the game by how good of a remake it is, I feel a weight has been lifted after finally being able to play a Mario game that a part of the world missed out on. It's games like this that remind us there's a purpose to remaking a game, not only to refine the gameplay of the original, but to introduce the game to an audience that never had the chance to play it. Taking out the fact that Super Mario RPG is a remake, the game is charming, funny, has addicting gameplay, and is a vibrant piece of art. Yeah, some things were a little underwhelming, and the game is nothing groundbreaking or anything like that, but most games don't need to be. They just need to be fun, engaging, and leave the player satisfied, and this game ticks all the boxes. Super Mario RPG is a game most considered one of Nintendo's best video games ever made, and on this occasion, I can turn around and say, yep, can't argue with that. Except that Gino is overrated.